All right. Just make sure everything is a go, and then we can start. There we go. Everything's ready. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 2 of The Gaming Grifter. Or just Gaming Grifter. I have not decided yet whether I'm going to put the there, or if I'm going to leave the. I don't know yet. But what I do know is it's early morning. It's about 9 o'clock in South Africa right now. I hope you are joining me, not sleep deprived. And if you are sleep deprived, I hope that I can entertain you enough that you can stay awake. There's a lot of news. There's a lot of things happening all around the gaming industry, as is normal at this point. And it really does feel like December is just a final moment for the gaming industry to kind of burn the final bridges. You know, just before you have the Christmas time, you know, the day where forgiveness comes. Maybe that's their plan, right? Burn all the bridges and then on Christmas, apologize and hope that you are forgiven so that new year, new me, all that stuff, right? I don't know. I don't know what the gaming industry is planning. What I do know is for the last few weeks, I've had to really choose what stories go onto the channel because it's just a mess. There's like every single day, 7, 8, 9 stories that I could be covering, but I have to choose. And so that's where this show was born, was just because there's just way too much news that's happening within the gaming industry. Shay, how are you doing? Happy to have you here. But all right, so things first, we have to jump into an old classic. I would say something that I've really been looking forward to. I've wanted to hear this for quite some time. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the end of Suicide Squad. That is correct. Ladies and gentlemen, that magnificent shooter live service game that was jam-packed from day one with wokeness and DI, and yes, Sweet Baby Inc. was in there from the start. And of course, this is another studio that basically told all of their gamers, hey, if you don't like the woke shit that we put in the video games, then don't play our video games. We don't care about you. You are a minority, and we only make games for the modern audience, because the modern audience, of course, is the majority. Now, I don't know how to put this. It doesn't seem like it's playing out that way. Just yesterday, we were looking at a graph of all of the woke games compared to all of the non-woke games, and you know how things are going within the industry. And it really does seem like all of these games made for the modern audience just does not attract the modern audience. Well, either that, or there is no modern audience, and gamers have always been gamers, and gamers want good video games that doesn't consistently preach to them. But alright, let's just quickly go through it. The final season, with Deathstroke joining the roster, the Suicide Squad's crusade against Brainiac is drawing to an end. I did not even know Brainiac was the main character or villain of the game. Season 4 will finish up with episode 8, which is scheduled to release in January 2025, and that will serve as the last seasonal episode for Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Now, ladies and gentlemen, just 2 months ago, Warner Brothers announced that they're getting ready to release major news stories and major news story updates for the game. They were really going all in. This was gonna be their cinematic universe. This is gonna be the one. The game that's gonna spawn new movies and new television series and, you know, basically spin-off games and so on and so forth. Remember, this is the same Warner Brothers who, after the incredible success of Hogwarts Legacy, when we don't want to, you know, that's a single player game. We don't really care about those games. Instead, we want to make live action and live service games because we really think live service is where the future is. Now, Hogwarts Legacy was in no means the most based video game, but it wasn't a game that were preaching to you. It wasn't a game that was trying to convince you that, you know, being woke is so much better than not being woke. It was just a game that you could play and you could be Harry Potter light, so to speak. And yes, you could go evil and do evil murder spells and all the rest of it. It was fun. It was a really fun game, really well-crafted world. Justice League was anything but. Now, they don't really go into a lot of detail as to why it all failed, even going through all of the articles. It's mainly the articles that's pointing out just how bad the game was received. But of course, we're still playing this pretend thing of, oh, it must be because of gameplay, it must be because of this, it must be because of that. Even though every single time these games fail, they all have one thing in common. Like, all of these games have varying degrees of gameplay. Some of them have completely different gameplay to others. Some of them have completely narrative arcs to others. So the variances between these games that keep failing are massive. The one thing that remains consistent among all of these games is their insistence on being super woke and having every single political issue that they can think of on the left being pushed and jammed into the video game. Now, it should come as no surprise that Suicide Squad is not doing well. 610 players playing currently, 980, not even 1,000 24-hour peak for a live service game. That's really bad. Of course, it's nothing compared to Concord, which is, it couldn't even break 1,000 concurrent players. And then you compare it to Marvel Rivals and you just go, well, someone somewhere isn't doing something correctly. Because if all of these games can do mega super well, then what the hell are you guys doing? Right? Like, what the hell is going on here? How can you make the claim that, oh, you know, and this, by the way, I'm not making this up, according to the media, the reason games like Suicide Squad keep failing isn't because it's super woke. It has nothing to do with wokeness, actually. The reason these games keep failing is none other than people just don't want live service video games. You know, live service is dead. There is no. Now, I do think there's some truth to that. I think live service games are always going to be a significantly harder genre to push in because live service games, by their very nature, and we've discussed this before, have a cap. There's only so many players that want to play live service video games, and there's only so many hours in a day. If one game comes out and it's super duper successful and it corners about 60% of the live service market, then just by definition, any other live service game that comes out only has about 40% of the market remaining that it could try and court. Now, it could try and go after the 60% of players that is currently playing another live service game, but generally speaking, because live service games have this incredible investment that is required, it's a lot harder to convince someone to leave their live service game for your live service game, because I've already spent a significant amount of hours playing this game and building myself up in this game only to move over to yours. So I do think there's some truth to that. The problem, of course, is that, again, we look at the games that keep failing, and at some point you have to make the argument, well, there's one thing that seems to be happening consistently. Consistently, every single time, this keeps happening. At some point, maybe we should start looking at the elephant in the room. Maybe it isn't the fact that live service games are just dead. Maybe it isn't the fact that, oh, you know, the marketing wasn't all that good. Maybe it isn't the fact that, oh, people just really don't like Euro shooters. That people really don't like Euro shooter boys. I promise you, this is a fluke. Now, many of you, the astute among you, might go, but Akko, hold on. Marvel Rivals is a free-to-play game. Concord was not a free-to-play game. Neither was Suicide Squad. These games were buy-to-play. So can you really compare these games to, you know, X-Defiant and Concord and Suicide Squad? And my answer there would be yes. Of course I can. And it's not based on the money, the initial launch. It's based on the amount of players that keep playing after they tried it. The free-to-play is genuinely a lower bar to entry. That's true, but free-to-play games have the ability to far out-earn their buy-to-play counterparts if they're actually good. But if you want to know what the success is, you look at the player retention. Exactly, Kuro. You look at how many people logged in day one, because it is a free-to-play game, there's a very low barrier to entry, but then did they keep playing? And as you can see here, there's currently 370,000 people playing Marvel Rivals. Clearly, of the 480,000 peak players, there's a lot of people that continue to like the game. You compare that to Concord, that's not the case. You compare that to Suicide Squad, that's not the case. And then you look at other games that were also buy to play. Cyberpunk 2077, for example, come to mind here. These were games that you had to buy to play. Palworld is another great example of a game that you had to buy to play. And yet what you see is that people have no problem buying to play. Path of Exile. Path of Exile currently is not free to play. Currently, to play it, you need to pay $30. That's about the price for the Suicide Squad game, I believe, in the last few months. That's the price for the X-Defiant game and for Concord. It launched around $30, $40. So, what's the problem? How is it Path of Exile has more than 500,000 players playing it at a $30 price tag, but your game, based on the Suicide Squad, can't garner an audience? Something is wrong. And it is not the fact that people don't like Euro shooters, because I present to you Euro shooters working really, really well for some people. So clearly, maybe it's time the media stop shoving or shoving their heads up the developers' asses, and the media start becoming honest with the developers and saying, hey, boys, your politics isn't landing. I don't know what you're doing, but your politics really isn't working. Now, I want to be clear about something, because this is a topic that's been on my mind for a while. And it is the question of, should games just not be political at all? Should all games be entirely apolitical? Is it that people have just reached this point now where sensitivity to any political mention on either side of the aisle has become almost cancerous? So as soon as you go even a little bit political, players just go, I'm out. No. I have no interest in this. I don't want this. My argument to that would be a firm and absolute no. And I can prove it to you just by showing you every single game ever made by Hideo Kojima. Hideo Kojima has never made a game that isn't incredibly political. His games actually drip with politics. They're super heavy into the political realm, into the conspiracy theory realm. His games basically are political works of fiction. But that's the secret. It's a political work of fiction. His games are not preaching to you. At no point does it feel like you're listening to a sermon by some woke preacher trying to sell you a bunch of nonsense. The political messaging within the game fits within the universe. It fits the universe. The universe is bent around telling the story. The character that you play in Hideo Kojima's games is not a character that you can make. He doesn't really make role-playing games, as it were. He makes games where you're playing a very specific character with a very specific personality, and your character is going through a very specific story that is catered and built around this one world. But it never comes across as preachy. It comes across as an interesting view. You can disagree with what is on the screen. You don't have to believe everything that is being covered on the screen, but it is very interesting. You'll also note that he makes sure that all of the politics is contained within the world. At no point during Metal Gear Solid did you get on the radio with a female companion and she said, hi, this is Major Taylory Green, she, her, they, them, ze, zer. That would be breaking the fourth wall. We're already sick and tired of you giving your pronouns on Twitter. We don't really need to hear it in a video game. It breaks the immersion. When you start inserting things from the real world, literally as is, it becomes awkward. It becomes awkward for everyone involved, because suddenly I'm not playing your video game, I'm on Twitter, reading someone's Twitter bio. That's the difference. And I genuinely believe that we're at a point now where your average game developer doesn't have the talent to do what Hideo Kojima does. Because I think doing what Hideo Kojima does, making games like Hideo Kojima, I think is incredibly, incredibly, incredibly difficult. It requires a mind that is ridiculously creative, understands the pitfalls of working with politics, and then be very sensitive to those pitfalls. Because remember, there's this old adage that says you never talk about religion and politics, right? Everyone growing up, at least my age, heard that from their parents a million times. The two things you never discuss at the dining room table is religion and politics, because guaranteed it'll just derail an entire evening that was otherwise quite fun. It just becomes a complete mess with people fighting and screaming at each other. That should tell you just how fraught that topic is, that subject matter is. If you don't have the talent to engage with that in a very respectful and sensitive manner, you're almost definitely going to burn yourself to the ground. And you can see the way in which these developers just do not get it. They do not understand what is happening. So, for example, you have this back and forth here, right? Where John Epler, now John Epler, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he's the lead on Dragon Age the Veilguard. Check me on this though. Back online for a moment, I do want to apologize to anyone, particularly any BIPOC fans, who I hurt with my comment in the IGN interview about endgame spoiler. Never mind. And then you have Ash here, Lady Insanity. This, of course, is on Blue Sky. Blue Sky is the new cancerous app. I really feel for the devs because of this last decade. Dragon Age the Veilguard went through 9 circles of hell. They fought internally for this game to come out as it did. No multiplayer, no, not to be mentioned BS, and as many inclusions as possible, and yet still they get ripped on and harassed to shit. Why are you feeling bad for them? The many inclusions is the problem. The no, not to be mentioned is the problem. The fact that all of these internal issues existed with Dragon Age the Veilguard is the problem. There's an article that I saw earlier today. I didn't want to cover it because it's basically just more of the same. But in the article, they basically explain one of the big things that happened in 2022. At the end of 2022, almost all of the veteran writers for Dragon Age the Veilguard was laid off. According to John Epler, the reason they restructured and lay off a bunch of writers was because the team was just getting too large and they really needed to streamline it. Now, for those of you that don't know, under normal circumstances, layoffs is last in the door, first out. Right? That's how layoffs are supposed to happen. That's normally how you do it legally. Because legally, if you want to do layoffs and you start firing the old guard, you are probably going to get into some trouble. The fact that they fired the old guard should tell you everything you need to know about this company. The reason the veterans were fired is most likely because of pushback. The veterans didn't want to go super duper woke. They didn't want to add all of the pronouns and the nonsense into the game. They just wanted to make a good, decent Dragon Age the Veilguard. The reason, and it's funny how every single one of these games that are super woke and just a complete mess all go through these 9 circles of hell in development where they can't get the game out. And I'll tell you why they can't get the game out. Because they constantly have to go back and forth between them and the Sweet Baby Inc. consultants to find out, wait, I want to have my character say this. Would that be inclusive? Is that inclusive language? If my character says this thing, oh no, you shouldn't be inclusive in that way. That's the wrong kind of inclusion. What you should be doing is being inclusive in this way. That's the new way, of being inclusive. That's why these games take so incredibly long to develop. That's why these games never actually come out. And when they do finally come out, it feels like a mess. It feels like the game's just all over the place and there's no real vision. There's no one vision. It feels like the game is sort of everyone's vision just jam-packed into it. Now, I do want to start by saying we should never stoop to their level. We should not be harassing the developers. Be honest, be open, be brutal, but do not harass. There's no reason for harassing developers because you never know whether or not the developer you're harassing is simply doing what they have to do to keep their job, or, you know, maybe they're changeable. Maybe you can change their minds. So it's worthy to note that engaging with them in a more honest fashion without just harassing them, probably going to get us a lot further than just straight up harassing them. But never mind that. I get how frustrating these developers are. The aggressive grifters and bots leading up to release was one thing. What bots? This is a whole other mess trapped between a rock and a hard place, and both have spikes. It's just interesting to me how we, the grifters, continuously get blamed for everything in the gaming industry, and at the same time, they pretend like we're just this small, insignificant group of people. And then Ash, of course, has to clarify. I didn't think subtext needed elaboration, but sure, constructive criticism is okay. Notice the word constructive criticism. I found this years ago in World of Warcraft. Whenever I would criticize World of Warcraft, I would always have people unsubscribing from the channel, and then they would be like, I don't mind constructive criticism, but this negative BS needs to go. And when people say constructive criticism, what they actually mean is you will only criticize the things that I agree with, and in such a way that it doesn't hurt anyone's feelings, including my own, even though my feelings can be hurt at the drop of a pen. Like, just you breathing wrong could hurt my feelings and I could start crying. So as soon as you say anything negative, you have to offset that negative thing with 5 positive things. That's basically how it got in World of Warcraft. At some point, I just stopped criticizing the game, and now I just sort of, you know, I'm along for the joyride at this point. But all right, so Ash goes on to say, I've repeatedly said Veilguard is not a perfect game. It's fine to have discussions about its lack of effectiveness or what have you. What I'm talking about here is harassment, thanks. Ash, no, that's not what you're talking about. You're just talking about people criticizing the Veilguard. Because what you don't want is we, the grifters, criticizing your game for being woke. You see, that's what you mean. Like, our criticism of your game could not be more constructive. I don't want your woke politics in my video games. Thanks. That is the most constructive criticism anyone could ever give you ever. Basically, what that means and how you fix it is whenever you are writing for the game and you have an impulse, you go, oh, that could be really cool. You ignore it. You pack that shit down, put it in a little box and throw it in the ocean. And like, oh, I'm a woke NPC. My thoughts don't matter. As soon as you come across a bit of a dialogue between two characters and you go, oh, that's a little problematic, you pack that shit in and you throw it in the ocean. You go, I'm a woke NPC. My opinions don't matter. It's the most constructive thing anyone could ever tell you, Ash. And it's so easy to fix. You just ignore literally every single thing that you think. In fact, let's make it quick and easy. You stop thinking. Because when you think stupid shit. So you stopping to think may actually be better. Like, just turn your brain off. Imagine, for example, I don't know, any other movie or video game that was good once upon a time, and just let the words flow out of you. And as soon as you find yourself thinking, just go, oh, wait, I shouldn't be thinking. And then just keep typing. That will unironically probably make a better video game. And that is as constructive as I can get with Dragon Age the Veilguard, because there's very little else that I could say about Dragon Age the Veilguard on YouTube without getting demonetized. Okay, Ash? Hope that helps. Dude, these bloody video game developers, man. It is an absolute joke. All right, I'm right here with you guys. Let's quickly hear what you guys have to say about this. There's no such thing as an apolitical story. Any game with a plot is going to contain some level of political viewpoint. A plot that doesn't ask you to believe something is a failing as a plot. True. If they have zero talent to handle these topics, it's a big movement bound to have idiots on board. Sadly, that is true. Poor Corin, poor BioWare was. The very inclusions for the sake of inclusion rather than world experience enrichment is the problem. True. Ben Kern, how you doing, brother? Made by a commie committee. Some of these developers tend to believe critique equals harassment. In vain, very, very true. Absolutely. What they call harassment isn't necessarily, though. They can't take anything but glowing positive feedback. Shay, that is definitely something that I've noticed, and I wonder... I wonder sometimes if the reason for that isn't the new sort of way of parenting. I see a lot of parents these days. You know, growing up, my parents were not my friends. In fact, it was made very clear to me from a very young age, we're not your friends, we're your parents. You'll do as we say, or else, right? If I stepped out of line, it was or else. I was also not really raised with this whole, you're very, very special, you little flower child. I was raised, I would say, very realistically in the real world, because my parents viewed raising me as an act of preparing me for the real world. Whereas I think a lot of parents today, or even a few years ago, parents sort of entered this new positive parenting feedback loop where you're not supposed to berate your child because think of your child's self-image. You know, your child needs to believe in themselves, and so your job as a parent really is to coddle your child. It is to encourage them to be better and to really live up to their potential. And I wonder sometimes if that isn't exactly the problem here. Most of these kids, like Ash, for example, have gone through her entire life believing that she is special. Believing that there is just nothing that she can do. Her farts smell like roses. And so the second someone says anything even remotely mean to Ash, Ash physically cannot handle that. She doesn't know how to process negative emotion. She has no idea what to do with actual criticism because she's never experienced actual criticism. She doesn't know what to do if someone tells you you're not good enough. How dare you say that to me? What about my own personal godhood? You know, I was raised as a little god, as a little princess. And now you're saying these things to me? Like, how dare you? And it just, I'm sorry, but that's no way to live life. That's no way to live in the real world. The real world is tough and it's hard and it's going to get even harder, you know? And I think that's where we are now. A lot of young people believe that they're special when really they are not. Ravy G, how you doing, bro? Couldn't wait for KCD 2 to blow Assassin's Creed Shadows out of the water. Dude, Assassin's Creed Shadow is drowned already. Near Western education system, it created these parents, and now they're helping the system destroy their children's self-sufficiency. True. You have a problem with that? Write a letter to a friend. That was my parents. What is the topic here? I'm late. Ben, we're talking video game shit. Definitely, parenting nowadays begins and stops at providing food, shelter, and keeping them happy, aka spoiling them, since the values end up out the window. Hero, very, very true. I hope you have a good stream, my friend. I've got to get Epic Thulu, sleep well, man. Take care of yourself, and thanks so much for hanging out, man. I appreciate you. All right. Our next story is a bit of an update on a previous story that we've done a few months ago. No, a few weeks ago, actually, at this point, about Grand Theft Auto. And Grand Theft Auto, there's currently a lot of things floating around about Grand Theft Auto, and specifically looking at the developers of the game. Now, it is important to note that of the game itself, we know nothing. They have been very tight-lipped about the actual story, about what's actually happening within the game. So we can only really look at the developers of the game to get a sense of what the game is going to look like. I'm also, in this video, again, only going to talk about the actual single-player campaign, and that's because I have no doubt in my mind that the online version of the game is going to absolutely kill it. Because people love the online RP version of Grand Theft Auto. So I genuinely do not believe that you will see this game fail. Even if the game is super mega woke. Here's the thing. The overwhelming majority of people that play Grand Theft Auto do not play it for the single player campaign. They might do the campaign, and once they're finished, they immediately log into the online, and that is where it happens. So that They can completely ignore whatever the hell is happening in the campaign because that's not what's important to them. So I want to be clear about that. I do not think, despite and in spite of how hard we may work as anti-woke creators, we will never sink this game. This game cannot be sunk. It is impossible because the things that we find issue with will not be present for 80% of the player base that will ultimately end up buying and supporting this game. Because the online part of the game isn't about the writers. It's about what you do as a player with your friends. So we look at the developers of this game, like I said, because we don't actually know what is in the game itself. And for those of you that think, well, we should wait and see before we make any sort of, before we make any sort of judgment call, I would say no. I would say that if you have a bunch of developers that's working on a video game, and those developers make it very clear that politics is their lives, everything they do revolves around politics, and they are incredibly political people, it is a good bet that the game is going to be as politically charged as the developers are that is working on it. So the video or the article comes from an expose that was done by YouTuber Endymion, where he highlighted a lot of problematic things within the game, right? Or at least within the team that is working on this. The first one you have here is from Alicia Powers Lee. She is a senior talent acquisition specialist at Rockstar Games, and that's according to her LinkedIn account. And she was responding to Bernie Sanders, who wrote a tweet about Trump and his plan to repeal estate tax and shit like that. And she responded by saying, a fair price were they all to drop dead. So basically, you have a developer over at Riot wishing that the president of the United States of America gets killed. Waifu, how you doing? Which is obviously amazing. Right, that's exactly how it should be. You have another Rockstar game employee here, Max C, who is an associate production coordinator, who reposted a post from Amir Satvat, who is a business development director at Tencent Games, who claimed that Gamergate 2.0... Now, this is where these guys just completely miss the plot. Like, they're so wrong on everything, which is nuts to me, right? So they claim that we, Gamergate 2.0, that we're accusing female developers of only being hired as eye candy. Now, how do I begin to say this? I have seen a lot of female game developers. I am yet to see, at least I would say about 95% of them. Eye candy is a strong word to describe yourselves. That is most certainly not what we've been accusing you of. We've been saying that you are diversity hires, and we're not wrong about that. You're hired because the company requires X amount of female employees. You're hired because the company requires X amount of black employees, or so on and so forth. And to my mind, I have no problem with a company hiring a gay person, a trans person, a black person, an Indian. I don't care. As long as the person that got the job deserves the job that they're doing. And I believe this fundamentally because I think it is incredibly harmful to the person that you're hiring if you don't do that. Because what is that person supposed to think? Imagine a black man gets a job at a game design company and he finds out that the company that he's working for is neck deep in DEI. What is the immediate thing that this black guy now thinks? I did not get this job because I was the best person for the job. I got the job because of my skin color. Which is, dude, that is the most racist thing ever, right? And I don't think that people feel good about that. I think if you ask every single person, right, whether they are gay, whether they're trans, whether they're black, whatever they are, if you ask them, would you like to go through your workday knowing that everyone is looking at you and everyone is thinking you don't really deserve that job? You only got the job because you are trans, or because you are gay, or because you are black, or because you are this, or because you are that. dude, it has to be soul crushing to be in that position, right? And that's really the only thing we've been accusing you of. Not that you are eye candy, Karen from whatever game studio with the blue hair that is fatter than me. You're not eye candy. That's certainly not why you were hired. They also go on to complain about the amount of money that is pushed into the game industry for male-led studios versus female-led studios. And again, if you want to answer to this problem, all you have to look at is the success rate. Studios that are headed by female developers tend to do a lot worse than studios that are headed by male developers. That's just a fact. Now, the reason that is a fact is because you have far fewer women in video games than what you have men. So just on average, there's going to be far more good developers on the male side of things than on the female side of things. That's just an average game, because you have 10 million male developers and you only have 2 million female developers. So there's bound to be more brilliant male developers than there are female developers. Maybe that is a thing that will change in the future. Maybe more women will go into video game design, but I don't think so, because right now the numbers are about 23%. About 23% of all game developers are female. There's nothing stopping women from going into the game design industry. They just choose not to for some reason or the other. And I think it has to do with interests. Most women have no interest in designing video games. We know psychologically women prefer people over things. Video games inherently is the design of things over people. So it kind of makes sense that this is just how it would be. So this is the next post. Then you have another one here. Now, here is, to me, just a bit of nitpicking. Okay? Now, I'm not throwing shade at Endymion here. It is what it is, right? He's obviously going to make a video, and he's just highlighting all of the employees that may or may not be politically active. But I can tell you, I know a bunch of trans people who are very happy to be trans, who are not very political. Like, they couldn't care less about politics. They'll say, I'm trans, but they don't really go into politics. So this, to me, is not necessarily worth pointing out. Okay, so there's a trans person that works at Riot Games. Oh, not Riot Games, Rockstar Games. Okay, cool. No problem with that. It does, however, get a little bit interesting from a political perspective in this tweet. Right, so this is where Vivi says, sorry, lovely humans of Twitter, but I'm not going to be using this website anymore. If you can be suspended for calling a TERF, but calling a trans woman a male is okay. Twitter obviously hates trans people. Follow me. As far as I know, you can call a TERF on Twitter. Like, and also note the date. The date is 2019, dude. Do you know how far left you have to be? Like, how far left you have to be to find old Twitter too right-wing for you? Like, do you know how far to the left you actually have to be? Because old Twitter was super left-wing. So I don't think that this is true. I think this is just another example of a person wanting to be special, fundamentally. I don't really care about any of this. Here we have Austin Roorda, a senior production coordinator at Rockstar Games, is also a supporter of the evil that is transgenderism. He reposted a meme that states, repost this as trans people are welcome and safe with you. So just more political stuff, basically, I'm assuming. Another post he wrote, not seeing garbage sponsored posts from grifters, rate baiters. Okay, so this is just from Blue Sky, being happy to be off of Twitter. This is the one that was, for me, my biggest issue, right? Is where you have Craig Grassi. Now, Craig Grassi is a talent acquisition specialist at Rockstar Games. And Craig Grassi has this tweet to the Scottish Family Party. Now, the Scottish Family Party makes their own, they make YouTube videos about family values and how to uphold family values, and sort of warning parents about, all of the stuff that can or cannot happen. And then you have Craig Grassier. Now, keep in mind that this is a developer that works on GTA that says, are you effing serious? This isn't a step-by-step guide for children. Why do you think they're being taught that sex should be pleasurable? If they find themselves in a situation similar to what's described, isn't it important for them to recognize that it should be pleasurable? Dude, what they're referring to here is sex education to kids going well above and beyond what you would consider decent for children to hear about. There are limits. Sex education used to be teaching kids what the penis looks like, what the vagina looks like, what the differences are between men and women. That used to be what sex education was. And I remember being taught for the first time it wasn't even sex education when I was in school. It was called life orientation. I remember being taught what happens when a girl and a boy kiss from a hormonal perspective, right? What happens in your brain. And then all the boys giggling and all the girls giggling. And then they would talk to only the boys about masturbation and what happens with masturbation. And they would talk to the girls about their versions of masturbation. So that used to be sex ed. But it usually was very surface level. At no point would the teacher go into how much fun it is to have sex, right? And how you should enjoy sex. These are kids in school. It should not be part of the curriculum to tell young people, you know what, sex is really fun. You should absolutely enjoy being poked. It's like, no, when they're older, they'll learn that by themselves. The fact that Craig has a problem with kids not being taught to have sex at a young age is a little bit of a problem, right? He goes on to have huge problems, of course, with mum and dad homes. He doesn't believe that kids require a mum and a dad. Just super political, okay? Super political. What's more funny to me, though, would be when the Scottish Family Party posted Scotland's looming fertility and population crisis with a thumbnail that says how to make babies, and Craig manages to post the flags that would not make babies. that was a little funny to me. Look, I have one of my brothers is gay. I have trans friends. I have gay friends. I love all people equally. But if you're gay, you're not making babies anytime soon, right? Like, let's be real. Your relationship doesn't work that way. So I just found this ridiculously funny that he would post a bunch of flags that isn't going to make babies as part of the how to make babies tweet. But clearly this dude has a big problem with anything. And I think that's the big thing that I want to highlight here is this dude's problem with normal. I don't believe that it is homophobic or transphobic or whatever other big you want to invent to point out that a man and a woman is normal. A man and a man is abnormal by its own definition because it's rare. It's not how it should be, right? A woman and a woman is abnormal because it's rare. It's very rare that stuff happens. That's not an insult. That's not a slight on the gay community. It's just that about 90% of normal humans will engage in sex with the opposite sex for their lives. That's what normal means. It should not be weird, nor should it be hated. I have a problem with people that make normal almost seem like it is disgusting and bad and should be fought against. We can say, hey, it is absolutely normal and good to be straight without going around clobbering gay people, right? I don't think anyone has the interest in doing that even. I saw a recent poll where they asked American conservatives specifically how they feel about gay marriage. And over 60% of American conservatives answered, don't care. And I kind of feel like that's probably how most people feel. They don't give a shit. Do whatever you want, right? As long as it's two consenting adults, who cares, right? I have too many things in my life that I'm busy with to care about that nonsense. So yeah, I have a feeling that we're gonna see a very woke Rockstar GTA6. We'll see if those fears are warranted. And the main reason this is a problem is it's GTA. GTA is supposed to make fun of everyone equally. You're supposed to play that game and feel offended at every turn because it takes everything and makes a caricature of it. Are they going to do that in the new landscape? Will we see them poke fun at gay people? Will we see them poke fun at trans people? Or is it just going to be poking fun at straight white men? Is the game going to be filled with jokes at the expense of straight white men? Maybe Asians also, because screw them, right? But I'm assuming that's pretty much what we're going to look to, right? Jokes about conservatives, jokes about Trump, and yeah, jokes about white people. Because obviously, and this is the funny bit, if you wanted people to be accepted, you should allow them to also be made fun of. Because that's the easiest way for people to come to terms with stuff. We laugh at it and then we move on. But hey, who knows, right? We'll see. Our life orientation didn't go that deep. No, waifu, very much surface level. You probably want the kids to be raised by the government. Yep, even if you are an atheist, that's how nature intended it, for reproduction and preservation of the species. And that's the problem. These people are narcissists and see not caring the same as hating. GTA6, well, true, Acedia. For them, you saying, I don't care, right, is the same as saying you don't want me to live and you want to kill me. And I say, well, actually, no, I don't even care enough to do that. I don't think you understand the levels to which I don't give a shit. You know, like I don't think you even you can comprehend how little I give a crap about any of this. Sometimes I think the whole woke Western game stuff is a psyop by the Chinese to buy out all the Western studios like they're doing with Ubisoft now. Dude, I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised at all if that is exactly what's happening here. I remember people back in the day making fun of Stan Lee's passing. Twitter was hell even before Elon purchased it. Waifu, I definitely agree with you. I think the only problem I have with Elon Musk's Twitter at the moment is the fact that creators are being paid to post on it. Because it has made Twitter a million times worse. Twitter used to be a place where people post their thoughts, and it was almost pure in how people were posting their thoughts purely to post their thoughts. You know, no one was posting for money, because making money on Twitter was always a roundabout thing. Twitter itself wouldn't pay you, but you know, you could grow your audience, and there through that you could grow your YouTube channel, or you could grow your Twitch stream or whatever. But Twitter itself was a very neutral platform because you would not make money personally from Twitter. Now, since people are being paid, the amount of bait on Twitter is insane. Like some days I genuinely look at my Twitter and I just go, man, I don't even want to post here. I don't even want to post here. I don't want to go through my Twitter home feed because it is boring. That's why the term used is ally. If you are not an ally, then you are. Then what are you? The enemy. That's how this thing works in their heads. It is so sad. It really is sad. All right. Had to bring in money somehow after that BS ad boycott. Oh, I mean, yeah. I personally, I think I'm gonna, at some point, I'm going to delete my Twitter account and I'm gonna start a new one. Because I hate the one I have now. I'll just say that. I'm not a huge fan of the one I have now. But all right, let's get into the next story here. Because, yeah, if you think it's getting better, boys, it's not getting better. Like, you need to strap in. It's not getting better. I have a personal example of this. I met a Norwegian girl on WoW, but when she told me she was a lesbian, I responded, well, I don't care. She got very upset. Wait, why did she get upset, Ravy? I don't understand that. I mean, personally, I think that's the highest mark of honor. No, like if someone tells me, "Oh, I'm gay," or "I'm trans," or "I'm lesbian," my genuine response is, "I don't care." And it doesn't mean I don't care about you as a human being. It means that I don't care about the fact that you're gay, trans, or lesbian. Like that is not interesting to me. Give me another interesting fact. You know? Like if you were to come up to me and say, "Oh, I'm trans and I kill kittens on the weekends," the killing kittens bit is interesting. Let's have a discussion about this. Something is very wrong here. The trans bit is whatever. That doesn't tell me shit. It's the kitten killing thing that I'm interested in. Same with a straight guy. If a straight guy walked up to me and said I'm straight, my genuine response would be, I don't care. I don't know what that means. Like, what am I supposed to do with this information? Because all that information tells me is that you don't suck pee-pee. Congratulations, I guess. I don't know. Do you want a star? Like, what do you want me to do with this information? But if you walked up to me and said, I'm straight and I like to kick old people, I'd be like, wait, you kick old people? Why? Right? Like, that's the more pertinent point that you just made. Like, the fact that you're straight would not even raise a question to me. It's the other thing that's the problem. I feel like people put way too much stock in their personal identities. When if you ask me, your sexual orientation should not be anywhere near the top 5 most important things about you. If it is, then you have a problem. It means that you are either a deeply dishonest human being or you're a deeply uninteresting human being. Do not care about people's pronouns. Westlock Abba, true. The one judge people by the color of their skin and their sexual orientation instead of the content of the character. 180 from what Martin Luther King was preaching. True, sadly. I kept forgetting my password and which email I use, so I accidentally have 3 Twitter accounts. Holy crap, Shay. You also have multiple, don't you have multiple YouTube accounts as well, Shay? Or Twitch accounts. I know someone who has like 4 Twitch accounts that just exist for some reason. Three Twitter accounts too? Why? Waifu? Wait, like why? What is the point of this? But alright, so let's get into the next story here. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Games for Diversity. Now, Games for Diversity, for those of you that don't know, is basically Sweet Baby Inc., but the Dutch version of Sweet Baby Inc. Now, Games for Diversity does something very, very interesting. They're a consultancy firm that brings game developers and players together to basically make super woke video games. Now, my problem with Games for Diversity is actually a little bit bigger than my problem with Sweet Baby Inc. Because Sweet Baby Inc. just destroys video games. But Games for Diversity, the game that you're looking at on your screen right now, this game right here, is a game It's called Amanda Sparks, I believe. Here we go. Amanda Sparks and the Shade Forest. Now, this game is about a drag queen that goes around kicking big burly men and saving her friends. That's the whole plot line of the game. Now, if you think to yourself, man, it's just a game, who cares? Well, here's where things get really dark. This game is a mobile game marketed for children. In fact, they go out of their way to censor the language in such a way that no age rating is put on the game in any country. That's one of the things Games for Diversity was doing, making sure that this game features nothing that could potentially take this game away from kids. They also made sure to market this game towards children specifically. And it's made with the help of a drag queen who wanted them to make this game, right? Yeah, it's all about getting to the kids. That's the whole point of all of this. Now, this whole thing starts with Gothic Therapy, the YouTube channel, the host, Master of the TDS and Writing Raven, who has exposed Sweet Baby Inc. and the PAL group. Now, you'll understand in a second just what the expose actually means. The expose follows along this. As Master of TDS and Raven went through all of the people that work at Sweet Baby Inc., all of the people that work at Games for Diversity, and the PAL group. Now, the PAL group is a consultancy firm. The PAL group owns Sweet Baby Inc., but also owns Games for Diversity. And as it happens, the people who serve on the board of the PAL group also serve on the board for Games for Diversity and also on the board for Sweet Baby Inc. So ultimately, you have three separate consultancy firms, but they're basically run by the exact same people. So it's really just one company meant to look like many companies. That's the whole point. That's what they've been exposing here, is this sort of weird push, I guess you could say, from the woke DI group, as it were. So the company was also revealed to have ties to Sweet Baby Inc., the narrative design firm started by Bowser enthusiast Kim Balair that seeks to inject DI and ESG into just about every video game. Now, here, Lexel, how you doing? Here where all of this started. The idea for Sweet Baby Inc. came to Balair when she was playing Mass Effect 2 and decided that allowing players to choose the race and gender of their protagonists was problematic. I'm going to read that again for those of you that might just have done a double take and wasn't entirely sure what the hell was just said. The idea for Sweet Baby Inc. came to Kim Balair when she was playing Mass Effect 2 and decided that allowing players to choose the race and gender of their protagonists was problematic. She goes on to say in her own words, she noted feeling negatively about the fact that she was witnessing her black female character speaking to another black character and not everyone was having that experience. In other words, the white man playing the game wasn't experiencing her black female character speaking to another black character. And that she found unacceptable. Because she is a little narcissist. You see, from Kim Balair's perspective, everyone in this world must experience her worldview. Because her worldview is the only worldview that matters. Now, Master of the TDS pointed out in their official press page for Games for Diversity, there's a write-up in which company chairman Menno Dean is highlighted and praised as a game changer by gamesindustry.biz. This is another thing that you need to understand. So first and foremost, all of these consultancy firms are basically the same firm. It's the same companies, but they all have ties into mainstream media. So mainstream media, let me explain the conspiracy to you all. By creating many consultancy firms, it sells the illusion that this is a thing that is in desperate need of. So if you're a new developer at a new studio, you look at all of these consultancy firms and you go, man, clearly all developers need consultants. There wouldn't be this many consultancy firms if consultancy firms weren't in high demand. Maybe I need a consultancy firm as well, right? So it helps give legitimacy to the cause. If you're just one consultancy firm, people might very quickly figure out that, oh, you don't matter. Which, by the way, they don't matter. Kim Belair has almost no experience in the industry. I did a video not long ago where I showed you all of the people working at Sweet Baby Inc. Most of them have no experience in making good video games. The games that they worked on aren't even games that you would ever have heard of, right? The games that they worked on that you have heard of all flopped and failed. So it's sort of like, it's the place where people go who really can't make video games in order to make a nice little grift. But so it helps with that. And then by having the media as part of this new push, like gamesindustry.biz, it provides the ultimate cover. Because the media tells the developers, hey, without a consultancy firm, you're going to go bankrupt. I just want to point out, this is what happens when you have a consultancy firm. This is what happens when you have a consultancy firm. This is what happens when you just make a video game. So if you're a games developer wondering, should I get a consultancy firm? You can either have this be your game, or you can have this be your game. You decide. Like, this is completely up to you. But all right, so as Master of the TDS, everything I've just told you was uncovered by Master of TDS on their YouTube channel. After they released their video highlighting all of this, Games for Diversity hits them with a YouTube complaint over privacy. This is where a company can contact YouTube and say, accuse a channel of breaking privacy laws. YouTube tends to take those things incredibly seriously. So, for example, if I knew where someone like Kim Belair lived, and I revealed where Kim Belair lives on my YouTube video, I could lose my entire channel because it's considered putting her in danger, right? You're revealing where she lives. You're not allowed to do that. However, those are not rules that apply if the information that is revealed is already public. So if Kim Belair tweets out her address and says, come fight me, bitches, right? And I show the tweet on my video, that is not me breaking privacy laws. You broke the privacy laws. I'm just reporting what you're saying. Now, in that event, I would actually black out the address in my video just because I'm not a scumbag. But never mind that. They sent YouTube this request for a takedown based on privacy and Master of TDS rights. It appears that individuals associated with Games for Diversity have filed a privacy complaint with YouTube regarding both our video and live stream that discuss their activities. Master of TDS said on X, all information shared in our content was publicly accessible. If further action is taken against us, we are prepared to contest it. Publicly available information does not violate privacy rights. If such information is displayed on your website, any resulting issues are your responsibility. Now, chat, why do you think it's so important to them to hide this? Why do you think they desperately don't want people to know about this? Because if people know, it exposes the truth. And it exposes the grift. You see, right now, the grift is alive and well. If you're a video game developer, if there are 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 video game consultancy firms, how can all of them be making money if they're not worthwhile and useful and people desperately want this as a service? The grift is alive and well. However, once the grift gets exposed, Once developers start to realize, hold on, but you don't have 4 or 5 or 6 game consultancy firms. You just have one that continuously moves people around to make it look like multiple, then the grift falls apart. And that's why they're desperate to have this information hidden. An interesting thing, of course, is even Amanda Sparks appears to be part of this, because Amanda Sparks tweeted out, he said, those sick Americans who made a video denouncing my game made another one, and this time I'm not even going to engage because they're too crazy. Why do you think Amanda Sparks why do you think he's not going to engage? Because he was told not to. The last thing these people want is exposure. They don't want to be exposed. Why do you think you never see advertisements for Sweet Baby Inc. or for the Powell Group? Why do they not advertise themselves? Why do they not put themselves out there? Why is their connections always shady? Their connections are shady because they desperately don't want people to know what is going on. Because that's the only way the grift keeps grifting. And I will say again what I said a few weeks ago. Actually, I think I said it last week. I would not be surprised if all of these consultancy firms are owned wholly or partly by the very people that do the ESG investments. For those of you that don't know, in order to get a loan from an ESG investor, you need to show that your game is going to comply with ESG standards. In order to comply with ESG standards, part of that is almost certainly going to be having some kind of consultant help you comply with ESG standards. ESG, of course, is DI woke to the max. Those loans are very, very good because those loans tend to be less than 1%, sometimes 0% interest loans, which is obviously super good for a game developer to make video games with. So the way these companies make their money is by owning the consultancy firms, forcing you to get a consultancy firm. If you want their money, you pay these consultancy firms ridiculous cash. It's ridiculous. Sweet Baby Inc. charged, I think, $7 million. If I'm not mistaken, it was either to Suicide Squad or to one of their other games. $7 million to consult on the game, and the game failed miserably. But of course, if you're the ESG investor, you just made $7 million. So you don't give a shit whether this game did or did not fail, because they still have to pay back with the 250 mil that they borrowed from you. But you already made your 7 mil out of the 250 mil that you borrowed, right? That you lent them. So it's a circle jerk, and everyone is getting rich except for the game developers who are not getting rich. That's how this scam works, and we need to keep exposing it. We need to keep showing this, because it is going to get worse if we don't stop this in its tracks. Gruffle, how you doing, bro? What is the game? So, Lexal, Amanda Sparks made a game specifically for children where a drag queen kicks big burly men to save her friends. So that's the game. That's the whole premise of the game, and it is very specifically made for children. Can't they go after them for bad advice? Wastelock, not really, because it's just a consultancy firm. So once you've paid them, usually these consultancy firms also will charge upfront, so you have to pay them ahead of time. They don't work contingent on the success of the game. $2 million is like money for 140 people's salaries. Yeah, but Lexel, what happens if you have 7 million coming in from, say, 200 games a year? Right? Then it suddenly becomes a big bit of cash. Thunder, I don't think Trump can stop this. This is not something that Trump will stop, nor do I think Trump should stop this. I don't want the government in the gaming industry. I don't want the government anywhere near the gaming industry. This is a thing that will be stopped by the people, by the gamers. By simply not supporting this level of nonsense, we will see these companies go bankrupt And it's going to continue to happen because what else? What else do you think? And if you think that it won't happen, chat, if you guys think that, no, bro, the gaming industry will never go bankrupt, there's nothing we can do, there's just way too much money, this is a losing battle, I give you Ubisoft. Now, we discussed this yesterday, but it gets worse, as you can imagine. This is, by the way, one of my favorite stories in the world. I love whenever Ubisoft gets kicked in the nuts. It is beautiful to see. So I love covering Ubisoft. You know, I can do this every single day and I'll always be happy. But okay, so Ubisoft is currently in a race against time. So for Ubisoft, if they do not buy back all of their shares and go private, Ubisoft is at risk of being taken over hostilely? They're at risk of a hostile takeover. I was wondering if there's another way I could say that doesn't make me sound uneducated. I think I failed at that. But yes, they're trying to stave off a hostile takeover. Hostile takeovers is where minor investors will come together, ban all of their investment stock to the point where they can ultimately force leadership out of the company and then force change. That's sort of what Ubisoft is trying to stave off. Things get a lot deeper. If you were here yesterday, or if you've watched the video yesterday, you will know that if you look at Ubisoft at the current moment, and you look at what Ubisoft as a company is currently worth, Ubisoft is a lot smaller than the sum of its parts. If someone were to take over Ubisoft and simply sell off the IPs of Ubisoft, they'd make a hell of a lot more money than by selling Ubisoft. So there's a good chance that that is exactly what Ubisoft, they know this is about to happen, and they're desperate to try and stop this. Of course, here's where things get really, really murky and why this gets really, really bad. Ubisoft has been in a bad way of late, with financial woes and a series of failed games dogging the once powerful studio. The Guillemot family, who started Ubisoft in 1986, have led their company down the path of ruin. The Guillemot family doesn't just own it, they run the company, by the way. Now they face the unenviable situation. The company needs to buy up stock and privatize if it has any hope of staving off a hostile takeover. Now, according to Reuters, Tencent wants more of a say in boardroom decisions within Ubisoft, including cash flow distribution. The Guillemots have reportedly not accepted these terms, and the deal is in danger of falling through. Tencent is apparently happy with its 10% stake in the company, believing it to be acceptable for gaming business cooperation. So here's what's happening. Tencent wants the Guillemots out, because Tencent wants to be able to say no and yes to things, you know, based on buying out the bloody company. What's very interesting here is Tencent appears to be the good guys here. Tencent appears to be the guys that's telling Ubisoft, hey, we'll give you all the money to buy back all of your shares, and we'll even stick to the 10% stake we have in the company. We don't give a crap, but we don't want more ownership in the company. You can pay us back once you make the money. We just want to be able to decide what games you make. We want to be able to decide what direction the games go. Now, of course, the problem with this is the Guillemots. The Guillemots want Tencent to buy them out, but they want to stay in charge of the company. That's actually their main selling point. You pay all of their debts, but they keep running the company. You know, that company that they just ran into the ground from once being one of the biggest AAA studios in the world. Guys, I'll remind you, Ubisoft was massive. Ubisoft was everywhere. It was international. And in less than 5 years, this company went from a ridiculously large and profitable company to now on the verge of bankruptcy. If you think that this woke stuff doesn't work, if you think that we can't win, let Ubisoft be that cautionary tale. Not only can we win, we are winning, right? But the Guillemots are fighting back, and they desperately want to stop this. However, if Tencent walks away, Ubisoft will be vulnerable to minority investors banding together to wrestle control of the company away from the Guillemots. So the Guillemots are basically spoiled little children that want to go, no, we will remain in charge. You don't get to take our company from us. And I think this is the very thing that's going to let them lose their company. So Joost van Drenen, we covered this yesterday. Ubisoft is headed for privatization and dismantling in 2025, he said. With its share price plummeting from 28 to 12 year over year, the company has become an attractive takeover target. Its valuable assets, particularly Rainbow Six Siege and Assassin's Creed franchise, could be worth more separately than together. It goes on to say Ubisoft's development approach remains stubbornly outdated in an era demanding player engagement and community building, Van Dreren said. Without a fundamental shift in how they develop and maintain games, they risk further alienating both investors and players. The XDefiant shutdown isn't just another failed launch, it is a symptom of a company that insists on catering to a passive audience while failing to recognize the urgency to rethink distribution. I think there's way more to it. I think fundamentally the failures of Ubisoft is 100% just wokeness. It's a company that has lost touch with its player base and is now desperate to try and get that player base back. They don't know what to do. Where are we supposed to go? We're making these games. We're doing all the things that we're told we should be doing. You know, the IGN and PC Gamer are telling us that we should go woke. You know, we should be diverse and we should be inclusive. So we do, right? We make a samurai and we make that samurai black. What more do you want? That's the most diverse thing we could do in an Assassin's Creed game set in Japan, you know? And the gamers don't want it. What are we doing wrong? Ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens when you're stuck in your little echo chamber and the only information you get is from the people who are stuck in the echo chamber with you. That's why I keep calling the games media a cancer. Because a lot of the failures that we see in the gaming industry is a result of these games journalists who they are supposed to be the voice of the gamers to the developers. The developers learn what the gamers want from the media that tells them. But what happens when the very person that is supposed to inform you of what gamers want is stuck in the echo chamber with you and, like you, believe that the gamers are just morons and should not be listened to? Well, you get Ubisoft. Right? You get a company that has failed to make a good game. How many years now? Like, when's the last really good game that came out of Ubisoft? This company continues to struggle, continues to fail, because they're out of touch. And they're out of touch because they, like every other AAA developer, forgot one of the most basic core tenets of video games. The best games on the planet are games produced by video gamers for gamers. You cannot make a game if you yourself aren't a gamer. Because how are you supposed to know what gamers want? If you're living in your little ivory tower, in your castles behind your gated walls, how do you know what the people want? How do you know what the audience cares about? You can't. But these companies have become megastars, superstars, too cool for school. And they're paying the price for that. And I, for one, say, good. Let them burn. They forgot the definition of insanity. True. What I'd give for a new Splinter Cell? Oh, normal steel. Splinter Cell was such a good game. I still haven't played till this day. Avatar? No, I haven't either. In before journalists are going to be mad at KCD2 for lack of diversity. Oh, they're already mad at KCD. Like how we covered that yesterday. The video is on the channel if you want to go watch it. They're very angry at KCD. But not because there's no diversity, but because the lead developer for Kingdom Come Deliverance tweeted out a screenshot of the current players in Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 versus Dragon Age the Veilguard. and there's more players playing Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 than there are players playing Dragon Age the Veilguard. And now everyone is super angry at him for basically saying, you know, Dragon Age is shit. That's funny. Spot and true. Hadwell, you're making a very good point. A lot of these companies seem to design their games based on feedback from like polls and stuff. So send out a group of people onto a university liberal arts campus or some shit, and then just get the information back from there, and then you make the argument, oh, well, you know, clearly these completely normal, non-brainwashed individuals, clearly they want to be more, clearly they want more diversity in our video game. Yeah, I saw this a few months ago, actually, Ravy G, what you're sharing now. But I, like now, back then, don't have a problem with a lack of diversity, right? I don't have a problem with diversity in and of itself, which is why I don't pay a lot of attention to articles like this one. Because I read through the article, and the article itself doesn't go into detail about what it means when it says there's more diversity, right? Because if it makes sense, if you've written the story in such a way that it actually, you know, fits, then I have no problem with it. I would have a problem with it if it's just forced in for no reason whatsoever. Then yes, that would be problematic. But otherwise, I don't necessarily. I will hold off until we know a little bit more, because from what I've seen, at least when it comes to the developer appears to be based. Like, I've gone through his Twitter account multiple times. He does not appear to be like a super woke person. He appears to be very based. But I also think, you know, if you are creative and you know how to be creative, then you're going to be able to do amazing things and make games that are diverse. Look at Cyberpunk 2077. I would say that is an incredibly diverse game, but it works, right? It works. It works because none of the characters feel like they're just inserted to make a point. Like, so that's probably also true. Not a monoculture. You can have only white people in the game and they're all culturally diverse. The thing is, I've said this before and I'll say it again. So imagine quickly I have a room, 2 rooms. In the one room, I have a white guy, a black guy, a Chinese guy, a Japanese guy, and a Hispanic guy who all grew up in the same neighborhood in Los Angeles, California, went to the exact same school and high school and university. And then in the other room, I have a bunch of white guys. One is a German, one is an Englishman, one is from South Africa, one is from Iran, one is from China. He grew up there. His parents moved there when he was very young, and another one is from Denmark. Which of the 2 rooms have more diversity in it? Right? If I were to give both of these groups, I asked them to write a story. Which of these 2 groups will have the more diverse story? Group 2. because Group 2 comes from completely different cultures, completely different belief systems, and they're working together to try and make a story that makes sense and that works. Whereas Group 1 is a bunch of middle-class people from the exact same neighborhood who went to the exact same high school and the exact same university, writing the only story that they know, which is whatever the hell they did in their neighborhood, right? Group 1 has no diversity whatsoever. At least not the diversity that I think matters. I don't think color matter. In fact, I don't like looking at color as a descriptor for anything other than the fact that if I were to meet you at the airport and you told me I'm the tall black guy, that's helpful only insofar as I know I shouldn't be looking for tall white guys. Right? That's pretty much the only place I can think of your race maybe kind of mattering. Outside of that, there's not much point in that, because a black person in America and a black person in South Africa are not the same. They do not have the same culture. They do not have the same background. They do not think the same. So that means their skin color is not important. It's the life that you led. So yeah, I prefer that. Yeah, and if you tell me you're you're a sprinter, for example, maybe your skin color matters there as well. So if you were to tell me, yeah, I'm a sprinter, I run the 100-meter dash, and I'm a white guy, I go average, middle of the pack, right? But if you go and I'm a black guy, I go, ooh, he could actually maybe be the next Olympic champion. You know, or NFL, right? So there's sort of, there are places where it might be a little bit helpful, but for the most part, it is completely useless. And I just want to point out that even that is actually racist. Because racism isn't just about bad things. Racism is anything that you believe about a person based purely on the color of their skin and nothing else. So even if you said, oh yeah, black people, oh, he's black, he must be fast. That is a racist statement. Because you literally judged him based on nothing other than the fact that he's black. Which is racist. But never mind. I'm not betting money on a token white guy, let's just say that. I guess that's fair. All right. In our next story, there's actually a little bit of good news. There's a little bit of everything and, you know, all things at the same time. We're talking Hollywood. We're talking Rings of Power very specifically, and it's sort of multiple stories jammed into one that I thought was interesting to talk about because we're still with the woke stuff, boys. I wish we could do gaming news that didn't include woke stuff, but these days, the only games that are actually making news are the ones failing because of wokeness. And the same seems to be true in Hollywood. When there's a show worth talking about, it's always because they made it super woke. And they keep ruining the stories that they make. But of course, Rings of Power is officially confirmed for Season 3. Now, what's very, very interesting here is when you start to look into the Rings of Power, this was always going to fail. There was nothing anyone could ever do about it because the duo, JD Payne and Patrick McKay, had never worked in the game industry, in the movie industry before Rings of Power. Now, I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, why do you think they got the job? You're dealing with the largest universe in movies, in entertainment. It's the Lord of the Rings franchise. Dude, this is a massive franchise. You would think that now is the time to go and find the most seasoned people you can get to make this show. They got this job. I don't want to say nepotism because I haven't been able to find any evidence of nepotism, but I believe they got the job because they have the right politics. When they gave their pitch for what they think Lord of the Rings of Power needs to be, it meshed well with the people that run the studio, Amazon movie studios, right? They wanted to dismantle and destroy the Tolkien universe, and you'll see in a second, they're proud of the fact that people hate the show. They wear that as a badge of honor, okay? So they just recently announced in an interview with Screen Rant, by the way, one of the media sites that keep praising this show, Screen Rant has called it a hit show. It's not a hit show, not even close. But all right, so it goes on. Here's the actual numbers for those of you that might not be sure what happens with Rings of Power at the moment. The first season came out swinging with a massive marketing campaign, yet it only had a completion rate of 37%. It is important that you hear what I'm saying. A completion rate of 37%. This means that of all the people that started watching it, only 37% of those people actually completed the show. Following the show, of course, MGM Studios had significant layoffs as a result of it, and the second season came out with far less marketing. They didn't market the show nearly as much. Funny though, of the people that started watching the second season, only 24.3% actually finished it, right? So it's even lower now than what it was before. So the show is just getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, meaning this show is currently making Amazon no money whatsoever. I'll talk about it in a minute as to why I think they keep doing this, but for now, all you need to know is that the show is going from worse to worse, and yet it just got a third season. What I will never understand is how this show gets a third season, but Firefly was cancelled after one. Dude, where was Amazon when Firefly was made? Because I could do 3 seasons of Firefly easy. Man, 4, 5, 6, 10 of Firefly. But no, I have to get this shit instead of an actual Firefly show that is good with Nathan and the crew. This is so annoying, but never mind that. Amazon Studios head, of course, is Jennifer Salke. Why am I not surprised that it is a woman at the head of the studios? And she, of course, sees it as a very different story. Here is what she had to say. Obviously, very different marketing levels and all that to season 1, Salke said when asked about the reception to the second season. But that being said, over 55 million people at this point have engaged since season 2 launched. I should actually clarify. I'm not surprised that it is a white woman. If you look at almost all things that is being torn apart in our industry, if you go down deep enough, you find a white woman at the center and the core of it. Because at some point, I don't know exactly when this happened, but at some point, white women managed to convince themselves that they are truly the most oppressed group of people in the world. I don't know if you guys have ever noticed this, but white women are the only ones that benefit from affirmative action. And this is proven through and through. Affirmative action overwhelmingly favors white women than anyone else. So white women are doing incredibly well. And it's just so funny because they point to the white men and go, yeah, these are the evil guys. It's like, bitch, 50 years ago, you were right there with me. Like, you were living in my house, eating my food using my credit card. You were enjoying all the privilege that you say I had 50 years ago, and now you're pretending like you never had that privilege in the first place? What are you saying? Like, what the hell are we doing here, right? And the minorities just keep eating it up. Look at all these white allies. Not realizing that the white allies are just allies because they're the ones... You're actually the allies to them. If you're a person of color and you're for affirmative action and you're for all of this woke stuff, please know that you are just working for the white woman. Because she's the only one benefiting from this. You're not really benefiting from any of this. But never mind that. Notice her wording here, by the way. She says, over 55 million people to this point have engaged with season 2. They do point out here as well. She doesn't say watched season 2 or viewed season 2. She says engaged with season 2. The reason she said this is because of the people that watched it, she can't actually claim that 55 million people watched the show. Because they didn't. 55 million may have watched episode 1, but they sure as shit didn't finish the season. So she has to come up with these interesting corporate speak stuff. But here is where we get to the real problem of things, right? So the Rings of Power champions diversity over storytelling, with the show's creators and cast harping constantly about race and gender within the show, as opposed to anything about story quality. The actors often speak of themselves as though they're civil rights heroes and not modern-day millionaires standing around in cod pieces. So here you have the Galadriel actress going, powerful women. They make people cross, and I feel blessed to play her. And to make Sauron cross, is what she also says there. And it's like, well, actually, you know what? Powerful women don't make people cross. Obnoxious women do. And it's not just obnoxious women. Obnoxious people make people cross. You are obnoxious. It has nothing to do with the fact, and you're not even powerful. Like, bitch, I don't even know who you are. Your name, Morford Clark, will fade into obscurity by the end of the show. You're not powerful. You've never been powerful. The original Galadriel from the original Lord of the Rings trilogy movies was more powerful than your character. Your character is insufferable and obnoxious. That's what people hate. It has nothing to do with her being a powerful woman. Like, no one gives a crap about that. Then you have actor Ishmael Cruz Cordova that stated, a big controversy of me being the first elf that wasn't white. I loved the nerve that I pinched. I really do. I was so excited to create something new. A lot of people speaking on behalf of Tolkien. I don't know if they understand the spirit of Tolkien. His work speaks of the times. No. Again, the reason people have a problem with elves not being white is it goes against everything in the Tolkien universe. Elves look the way that they look for a reason. Tolkien specifically is the worst author that you can take liberties with. Because when Tolkien wrote his stories, he was incredibly specific about what he wrote. Incredibly specific about what he wrote. That's why people have a problem with it. Because elves are white. That's the whole point of them. They tend to be very pale. Now, if you were a wood elf, that might be a little bit different. Because maybe you can kind of convince me that Tolkien's wood elves may have had darker skin, even though that is actually not true for Tolkien's universe. But it is at least, there is a precedent within established fantasy titles of wood elves being darker skinned. That could have worked, but that's not what you did. You just pretended like this is completely normal, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And then you gaslit the player base into thinking they're the assholes for even beginning to question it. That is the issue here. But then, of course, you have, and this is how you know that these people never cared about the universe that they actually create. This is J.D. Payne, one of the showrunners of the show. The spirit of Tolkien is about disparate peoples who don't trust one another and look different from one another, finding common ground in friendship and accomplishing big things. That's the spirit we've tried to inculcate into every single comma and period in the show. As an avid Lord of the Rings fan, that is 100% not the spirit of Tolkien's work. The spirit of Tolkien's work is triumph of good over evil. How evil cannot create, it only corrupts. And how good people have to stand up in order to fight the evil that only corrupts. That's the spirit of Tolkien's work. Tolkien's work is, yes, based on the Bible. The Christian influence of Tolkien's work is insane. There's so much influence within Tolkien's work from Christianity, and there are many Christians who actually believe that it is the work of evangelism, insofar as the elements and the subjects can be extrapolated upon. So no, it's not about friends finding common ground. In fact, The Hobbit is meant to show the everyday man, the person that is completely uninteresting. There's nothing miraculous about this person, and how they are oftentimes the only ones that can defeat evil because they don't crave power. That's the concept in Tolkien's work, right? That's why hobbits are not so susceptible to the ring's power, because hobbits don't crave power. They don't crave rule, right? That's the point. So in a way, JD Payne, you are correct. You did inculcate the actual spirit of Tolkien's works into every comma and period of the show. The problem is that you do not understand who you are in the story. You're Malkor. You're Sauron. You are the evil that cannot create. Instead, you only corrupt. You are the evil of the show. So technically, yes, you did capture the spirit of Tolkien's show, or of Tolkien's universe, perfectly within your show. Just not in the way that you, I think, were hoping to do it. But he then addressed the critics, of course, and he said that this aspiration would be offensive to people and enrage them. It's very hard for us to understand. What are they protecting? I don't see how people who are saying these things think that they're fighting for good. What are we protecting? Our IPs from people like you who wish to enforce your politics into our stories. JD, this story was not written by you. You have no right to make this story your own. There is a thing called creative license. For example, Aragorn. Aragorn in the book and in the movie, completely different. However, the creative license did not take away from Aragorn. Aragorn is still an incredible character within the movies. But in order to tell his story succinctly so that it made sense, they had to take creative license. But they continuously kept in mind, who is Aragorn? And how do we make Aragorn into the character that he is in the books without spending an entire movie just on Aragorn's story? What you're doing isn't creative license. It's the complete and utter destruction of what's good about Tolkien's universe. And it is an actual crime that you should be committed for. And it's not just, by the way, I won't go into too much detail here, but it's not just I that think this, or you guys that think this. Mads Mikkelsen has come out and has basically said he's had enough. He's had enough of the woke nonsense. Hollywood is a mess, and he just can't stand it anymore. So here is what he said to a Swedish news outlet. He said, "You don't get any film support if you don't follow orders from those in power," Mikkelsen said to Swedish news outlet Svenska Dagbladet or Bladet. "It's risky because you want to create stories that are fun, interesting, and challenging." He goes on to say, he went on to claim that his home country of Denmark is a country that still believes in artistic freedom, describing it as the naughty little brother. He then noted how that differs from the culture in Sweden, calling it the good big brother, where you have to follow the system. Mikkelsen highlighted a Swedish cultural shift that started in the 1980s. This pushed ideological conformity on the Swedish film industry, and Mikkelsen believes that's why the quality of those films has suffered. Matt Mikkelsen has hinted at his disgust with woke Hollywood in the past, Just last year, the actor got salty in an interview at the Venice Film Festival who questioned the diversity of his movie, The Promised Land, which is a historical drama set in the 18th century Denmark. So the journalist asks him, this is a cast in a Danish production which is entirely Nordic, the interviewer stated. It's set in Norway, but all right. It therefore has some lack of diversity. And Mikkelsen immediately started scoffing into the mic. What are you onto? He exclaimed while laughing and shaking his head. The reporter then clarified, stating that the Oscars and other film award shows have specific diversity requirements now that mandates all productions must tick certain boxes in terms of cast and crew to be considered for awards. I'm just curious, the reporter attempted to clarify in the wake of Mikkelsen's laughter. It's not because of artistic reasons, it's because of a lack of diversity that this can't compete in that competition. Are you worried about that? And Mikkelsen answers, are you? Mikkelsen added, I'm serious and honest because you're putting us on the spot, so you answer the question. And then in 2014, Mikkelsen also spoke out about the woke ideology and the political correctness, saying there has to be a balance between what is real and not real. He said, speaking on the surge of female-led Danish crime dramas, I will never be a fan of any kind of political correctness. I think it's instant death to creativity. And I actually agree with him. There is nothing worse to me than watching a show where the female lead gets into a fight with 3 guys twice her size, and then she kicks all of their asses. Watching that show and seeing that, it's just like, that is absolutely not what would happen. Those guys would kick the shit out of you. Even if you could do karate or martial arts or kung fu, even if you were Bruce Lee's granddaughter, 3 big burly men would kick the shit out of you. They'd probably kill you as well. I don't care how good you think you are. Instead, make her win by outwitting and outsmarting them. By using the fact that she isn't as powerful as the tool that allows her to... This is one of the things I love about Black Widow. If you've ever watched the Black Widow in the Marvel movies, Black Widow will use her sexuality to get men into positions where she can kick their asses. But she uses the fact that she's sexy, that she's hot, to sort of disarm those men, and that becomes believable. It becomes believable. Now you can believe that, yeah, she caught them unawares. That kind of worked. The rest of it is just complete nuts. And then just the cherry on top for those of you that might have wanted to see it. The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim, bombs in its entirety. The show didn't even manage to break 2 million. Dude, that's bad, right? It's an anime about Lord of the Rings. And of course, if you were wondering why exactly this anime failed as massively as it has, it is because the show decided to do the Battle of the Rohirrim, but to focus on not Helm, who would be the main character of that sort of period, but his daughter that was genuinely just named. Like, Tolkien never even wrote anything about his daughter. He just gave her a name, insofar as he has a daughter. And instead, the show says, actually, no. This unnamed character that no one should give a crap about is going to be the lead protagonist of our movie. Because girl power. And it's like, that's a bold move. We'll see if that plays out for you, but I'm willing to bet it will not. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, if you were wondering, Hollywood is not healing, but it is getting its ass kicked, and that is beautiful in and of itself. Can these people stop tainting the Lord of the Rings franchise? Modern day kids will probably never know about the trilogy's greatness. That's what scares me. Don't bother watching it. Lord of the Room is dog water. Have you watched it, Ravy G? It is Obi-Wan. They tried to do it in Hollywood. And I mean, if I was a kid today, I would only watch older movies. Dude, I basically only watch older movies. I spend most of my days watching older shit. I did watch a movie yesterday that was actually pretty good. It's not a brilliant film, but it's a decent film. It's called Burnt. Have you guys ever seen that? It's Bradley Cooper, who is the chef. And he comes back from being addicted to a bunch of shit and he starts a new restaurant. It's decent. It's not the best film in the world. Don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting this thing, you know. But it came out in 2015 and it's decent. It's pretty good. I enjoyed it. I like Bradley Cooper as well. I like him as an actor. He's very, very decent. But all right, ladies and gentlemen, our final story of the day comes from Twitch. As you can imagine, I stream on Twitch, so it's kind of important to me. Now, Twitch is an interesting platform. I love to hate it, and I hate to love it. It's sort of like it's a mixed bag of things kind of channel or platform. One of the big problems I have with Twitch is the incredible anti-Semitism that happens on this platform. And the issue is that most of the anti-Semitism on Twitch gets disguised as anti-Zionism. Now, make no mistake, I do believe that there is such a thing as anti-Zionism. I have no problem with that. If you're someone that genuinely goes, look, I just don't believe that the Israelites deserve their own state in Israel, then I go, okay, well, let's have that conversation then. Where do you think they should go? Do you not consider that to be their homeland? Because it is their homeland, right? We have 6,000 years of history that says that it's their homeland. So what do we go from there? We can have an actual conversation. We can have an actual discussion and we can try to figure it out, right? Anti-Zionism, that's one thing. The problem is when you have people, for example, yelling things like, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. On the surface, it might sound, dude, yeah, we just want Palestine to be free. But from the river to the sea is the entire area. And the entire chant is created by Hamas, who, in their own words, you can go look at the Hamas leadership saying this in their own words. They will not rest until every single Jew is dead from the river to the sea. That's what that phrase, that's what that thing means. It doesn't mean that Palestine should simply be free. Hamas has no interest in freeing Palestine. In fact, Hamas couldn't care less about the Palestinian people. Hamas cares about killing Jews. Because according to Hamas, if you know anything about the Islamic faith, in Islam, paradise and God will not return, right? The final days will not return as long as there are Jews. In order to bring paradise about, in order to bring God's return about, all Jews must die. It's very simple. You can go read it in the Quran if you don't believe me. This is now, luckily, the overwhelming majority of Muslims look at that little passage in the Quran and go, never mind. You know, or I've met some Muslims who will go, yeah, but it's not us that will defeat the Jews. It's actually Allah that will defeat the Jews. And he will do that by converting them to Islam, whatever the case might be, right? So you get, luckily, most Muslims don't, but specifically Hamas and Hezbollah absolutely believe that it is their job, their duty, in fact, to destroy and kill every single Jew. Because that's the only way heaven can come back, right? Paradise can finally be on earth, is with the destruction of the Jews and the Jewish state. So make no mistake about this. And this is the problem that Twitch has. You have people like Hassan saying incredibly anti-Semitic things on his channel and saying it proudly. Now, as a result of this, Twitch has been experiencing phenomenal problems, specifically with advertisers. Advertisers that have washed their hands of Twitch and have said, look, we don't want our ads playing on this nonsense. And you can understand it, right? If you're a company that is selling goods to ordinary people, the last thing you want is one of your customers phoning you up and being like, bro, are you guys anti-Jew? Because I just saw your ad on top of a stream where this guy was calling for the death of Jews. And this bank going, dude, what? Like, what? What ad? That's not us, right? So you can imagine that for a lot of advertisers, this kind of stuff is unacceptable and it just does not fly. But here's DJ Clancy clarifying the matter.
So I think there's a lot of confusion. It's absolutely the case that certain content, it does affect your ads, and our advertisers at times adjust their controls in terms of the content that they want to see. But in general, we have not seen this big shift.
I think that's well said. Not just maybe confusion, but maybe some misinformation as well. It's
probably very important to note the interview that he's doing here is with the community marketing director of Twitch. So this is sort of like one of those, we're going to do an interview and we're going to make it look completely normal. Here's all the questions. Go prepare to give good answers. And then give me all the answers that you're going to give, just so that I can make sure that your answers are really good. You know, and really to the point. And then we'll make it seem like it's really hitting all the right notes and going in the right direction so that we can really put out all of the fires that we're starting because we refuse to ban Hassan. That's all Twitch needs to do. Ban Hassan. You ban Hassan and all of it goes away, because Hassan is the one that makes his orbiters feel like they have the right to say the things that they do. Hassan has no business being on Twitch. And I'm not against people being left-wing. I'm not against people saying left-wing nonsense. But at some point, you have to look at what someone is saying and go, bro, if you're going to ban other people for far fewer infractions, how the hell are you not banning this guy? Now, in a perfect world, Hassan wouldn't get banned. But so too would no one else. My problem is the fact that everyone else gets banned for anything and everything that they do, but Hassan gets to stay up, right? That's the issue. It's your two-tiered system of policing that I hate. So for that reason, ban Hassan. Get him the hell out of here. It's just absolutely nuts. But okay.
Well, there's a lot of things that people can say on Twitter, but there's no there's like nothing really guaranteed here. And we've seen a lot of creators not experience anything.
So according to them, there is no adpocalypse on Twitch. The advertisers have not pulled out. All of the advertisers are still super happy with everything that's going on. But of course, that's just not true. We now have confirmed reports from Forbes that JP Morgan, AT&T, and Dunkin' Brands have pulled advertisements from Twitch following accusations the popular live streaming platform is promoting anti-Semitic content, according to Bloomberg, signaling the latest criticism faced by Twitch, as it has repeatedly found itself in hot water over anti-Semitism allegations. So clearly, they're not even being honest in their damage control. Because the honest thing here would have been, look, guys, we have seen some advertisers pull out, but there's still a lot of advertisers that are super happy to advertise on our platform. It's really not a big problem. You guys should not really worry about it. But no. Instead, it's all, it's complete misinformation. It's Twitter misinformation. There's absolutely nothing wrong with advertisements. Everyone is still making the exact same amount of money. It is beautiful. Obi-Wan, I don't really make money on Twitch, not that much. I think my monthly payouts on Twitch is maybe something like $300, $350. So if I am getting ad money, it's maybe like $20, $25 or some shit. I don't know. I don't check. So I don't know how much money I make on Twitch, but it's not much. I stream on Twitch just for the fun of it. I don't really make money on Twitch. So I'm not the right person to ask. You'd have to ask someone that's much, much larger than me. But the last time I checked, I took about a 50% hit. I think Rurikon asked me. And 2 months ago, I made something like $32 in ad rev. And then last month, I made something like $15 in ad rev. And I streamed more last month than I did the month beforehand. But it's like, I don't know. You'd have to make that decision for yourself, right? And here is Dan Clancy lying a little bit more.
And they say, "Oh, that should be it." You know, in this particular case, as an example, and I think we all need to be a little careful about trying to capture that one moment when somebody said something, almost like a game of gotcha. Okay, streaming is hard. You're on stream for a long time. You know, when the example you're given, I doubt that person was seriously suggesting that's what they were going to do. It was.
All right, DJ Clancy, I get you. What he's talking about here, by the way, is they look at every single report of harassment and anyone that reports streamers. They look at every single one of them. But it's difficult to figure out whether or not you should punish someone because they said something that's really egregious, or was it just a moment in time, you know, maybe like a little slip up. I agree with you. There are times, look, streaming is very difficult. You're live. All of your thoughts are unfiltered. You might say something in the heat of the moment that you don't necessarily even believe, right? But you're saying it because you got worked up or because you lost a little bit of your, decorum or whatever. And now it's out there for the whole world to see. And oftentimes that might make big news somewhere. So I absolutely agree. But what happens when you have someone that not only doubles down and says it again, but then triple down and then quadruple down and just keeps doubling down on the things that they say and keeps saying the same things over and over and over and over and over again? At what point do you go, well, you know, you have to think of it in the context of the stream? Yes, but then you also have to think of it as the context of the body of their work. You can't say every single stream is a new day, new dawn, new start, and everything that happened prior to this is not counting. Because it must count. If I made incredibly anti-Semitic comments yesterday, and the day before, and the day before that, and I also make them now, at some point, there's a trend. There's now a pattern that is emerging of incredibly anti-Semitic behavior on my platform, on my channel. And that should absolutely be policed. Or you should come out and admit you don't police anyone. And then you have to apologize to Asmongold for the fact that you banned him, but you did not ban Hassan. Because if what Asmongold said was wrong to the point where it warranted a ban, then Hassan has said the exact same stuff, if not worse, about Israel. But for some reason, when you say anything bad about the Palestinian people, that's no, no, no. But if you say bad things about Jews, that's yes, yes, yes. So no. Either we're allowed to say bad things about both, or we're not allowed to say bad things about either. But this two-tiered system isn't working, and it's not going to work. It's going to make things worse. It's going to make things a hell of a lot worse, because you're already seeing it. The incredible misinformation push about the stuff that's happening in Gaza, the incredible amount of simping that's going on for Hamas. You know, we've gotten to a point now where even criticizing Hamas is seen as anti-Palestinian. And it's like, bro, the overwhelming majority of Palestinians don't like Hamas. But Hamas is painted as these freedom fighters, which is not true. The son of Hamas, a Palestinian whose father was the leader of Hamas, he tells you, right, how the people of Palestine feel about Hamas. They hate Hamas. They wish Hamas could be destroyed because Hamas is a very evil organization. But you're not allowed to say that, because you say that, you get banned. But then if you say things about the Jews, because I can sit here and say the exact same thing about Israel. I don't like Netanyahu. I think Netanyahu is a warmongering asshole. I think he's a very bad guy, and I don't like him at all, right? I can say the exact same thing about him. And I think that he is very, very evil. But I won't get banned for that statement. That statement is fine. But the other one gets me banned. How do you marry these two ideas? I don't understand how you could marry these two ideas. Either we're allowed to say both, or we're not allowed to say either. But it is a mess. It is a mess. Tekla, what's up? Lexel, I know you and I have had our disagreements about specifically Palestine. There's a bunch of people that you should look into. People who have been there now, right? So people who've been inside Gaza, people who have been to Israel, who've seen everything. There's a lot of things that isn't being said. A lot of things that isn't being shown that I think would make I think it might change your mind a little if you actually paid attention and looked that up. Just reacting to that Twitch dude saying that streaming is super hard. Oh, right. Everyone celebrated the fall of Syria yesterday in their ignorance of the concept of a power vacuum. Oh, yeah. I mean, the fall of Syria is going to be very interesting for what comes next. If the Middle East has taught us anything, it is that the second one government is replaced by violent forces within the government, what replaces it is never better. Iran is a great example of this. I was watching this documentary about Iran prior to the civil war that broke out, where he's not called the king. What was he called again? Was it the Sheikh? No, not Sheikh. They had a leader who was actually incredibly progressive. He was opening it up for women to work in the government, and women didn't have to wear hijabs. Women were incredibly free under this king. And the Islamist group managed to join up with the communist party to overthrow the government. Then the second they overthrew the government, the Islamist group killed the communists and took power. And I mean, now Iran is just being run by this incredibly fundamentalist government where most people, well, you're free to do whatever you want to do as long as you do it as the government says you have to do it, right? Power vacuums are never good, especially in countries that have more fundamentalist tendencies, and Islam itself lends itself to incredible fundamentalist tendencies. So it almost creates this perfect environment in a country like Syria for an Islamist group to take over and turn that country. Now, I'm not suggesting Assad was a good guy, right? Assad was not a good guy. But sometimes it's sort of like this, the devil you know is much better than the devil you don't, right? Because at least the devil you know how evil he is, and you kind of understand the level of evil that he's willing to inflict upon his people. Whereas the devil, you don't know. You have no idea what can or cannot happen, right? And how bad it can or cannot get. Spartan, I'm not sure, but it is. The problem is in Iran. So, Lexo, you're absolutely correct. The documentary I watched highlighted the same thing. The overwhelming majority of people in Iran are not in support of the current government. The issue, of course, is that a sizable portion of that 80 to 85% of people are, well, they actually want more strict Islamic controls. So there's Islamists that's very upset with the current government because they actually want the country to be even more Islamist than it already is. Then there is, I think, the overwhelming majority of the people just don't want any more fundamentalist nonsense. They want a normal government that doesn't want to be fundamentalist, Islamic. So there is that. The problem is just, once again, power vacuums are dangerous. Very dangerous. And they create big issues. Germans finally found out a way to stop asylum seekers from Syria. Wow, no one thought it's possible until now. That government is the issue. Like, so I understand your standing point perfectly, but you need to understand that when I view Iran as an enemy of the world, but not the Iranian people, which is why I've never been an advocate for an invasion of Iran or a war with Iran, because the people of Iran, as far as I'm concerned, is completely innocent, and therefore does not deserve to have war inflicted upon them. The government of Iran, on the other hand, not so much. So I do view Iran as a country to be evil, but only because of its government, not its people. Because the people don't have the ability. In a theocracy where the government has absolute power, the people have no power, therefore the people don't represent the state, right? It's the state that represents the state. Israel, in my opinion, is at war with the Iranian government. So and I wouldn't even say that I support Israel, because I don't support Israel. I don't support anyone, right? I don't support war, period. I don't support Hamas. I don't support Israel. I don't support Hezbollah. I don't support Iran. I don't support America. I don't support Europe. I don't support South Africa. Well, I could support South Africa because we won't do shit ever. But I don't even support my own country. I don't give a shit. I would like war to end, but I also understand that that is very naive, because you have very bad people in the world that has to be stopped. And I think if you asked most people, most normal people, does Hamas need to be stopped? Does Hezbollah need to be stopped? Does the Iranian theocracy need to be stopped? I think most people would say yes. They deserve to be stopped. They're very evil. And that's where it ends. Because the second we say, well, how do we stop them? You have to invade. Who suffers more from invasions? The people being invaded or the army of the country being invaded? It's the people, right? So the question is, okay, you're gonna get rid of this group, cool, but how many ordinary people are gonna die as a result of it? You know, it's weird. It is very, very weird. They're saying all the countries that were prisoners of the USSR were representative of the USSR. Does stopping my government equal getting me and my people to be killed in the crossfire? Well, like, so that's literally what I'm saying, right? Is how do you stop a nation that is very evil, or at least its leaders that is very evil? How do you stop that without ordinary people dying? And the answer is you can't. And that's where I say, leave countries to sort out their own problems. Don't interfere. The US should never have been in the Middle East. We shouldn't interfere in the Middle East. Israel is a different story. They have problems on their border. They want to take care of those problems. I don't know how to solve that. It's a nightmare. Lakesell, that's not the only thing Hassan says. If that was all Hassan said, I would agree with him. But that's not all he says. And I think if you ask this is the thing, if you ask most people, should the US interfere in the Middle East? Most people would say no. No, we should not interfere with the East. Let the Middle East take care of its own problems. Most people agree with that. But then there's a bunch of other things that Hassan says that most people go, ooh. I don't know about that, though. That sounds a little harsh to me. I do know that, Lakesal. I am aware of that. But again, in the same way, I'll ask this. If Iran had the means and the power, well, actually, I don't even have to say that. Do you know which country Iran interferes in every single election cycle? And I mean, it's open. It's not even a secret. Do you know which country paid all of the debt for my current government? I mean, the party, not the South African government, but the party that rules and has ruled. Do you know who paid their debts? Iran. Yeah, Iran paid their debts. Iran has interfered in every single South African election since 1994. Every country interferes in every other country's elections. Some countries are just better at it than others. Should it happen? No. Is that highly problematic? Yes. Is there any way to stop it? No. Because every country has different reasons for wanting to be there and wanting to interfere. To be fair, I think Iran is being pushed to do it by China. Well, Spartan, China also interferes in our elections, even though I'm not entirely sure why, because even if no one interferes, the ANC still wins the election. So they don't really have to interfere. But I think the main reason they do is the main party is constantly bankrupt. And so if they were to go bankrupt, then they obviously wouldn't win the next election. So they kind of have to keep interfering in order to keep the party going. But all right, ladies and gentlemen, I have to go edit these videos. And I have to go get some food. And I have to take care of a bunch of stuff. We've spoken way longer than I anticipated to do. Lexel, I am glad to have you back, by the way, in the community. I haven't seen your face in a while, so very happy to have you back. And of course, to all of you that have hung out and spent time with me this morning. There's a bunch of new faces that I've never seen in stream before. I'm super happy to have you guys here. And to all of the returning faces, of course, I will be back tomorrow if there's gaming news. If there isn't, then the day after that. But thank you so much for watching episode 2 of Gaming Grifter. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, I will see you guys later on Twitch. For those of you that want to check out Path of Exile 2, follow me on Twitch. The links are in the description down below. Be good to each other. Be kind to each other. And I will see all of you in the next one. Peace.